We have some good folks in with us. We have Lindsay France and Rob Taub both with us. There they are. Look at them popping right up there. Good to have you guys with us. Do you think this is a way for Senator Flake to get back at President Trump without worrying about his own reelection? Lindsay, sorry, go to you first.
Okay. It could possibly be. You know, it's difficult to sort of read the tea leaves and figure out what's going on. There are so many chess pieces in this, as we heard during the confirmation hearings. Democrats are being groomed for president. A lot of them caused, a big circus. Republican side, sometimes they're more brave when they're not facing re-election. Some of them want to lash out. I just don't know. I think also it'll depend on the testimony, if and when she testifies, and Republican reactions to that, especially as regards Jeff Flake. I would be interested to see that. So I just can't say I'm sure right now.
All right, but Lindsay, let's go to your credentials. You're the business and politics editor of the Independent, the Independent Voters Network. I always mix that up with the Independent Women's Forum. But independent voters are going to decide elections.
Right.
They're deciding elections. Down here in Florida, they are making the call. Rob's a Democratic strategist. He's a Newsmax contributor. Rob, by the way, has been chomping at the bit for a debate all week on Twitter. He's been tweeting us like crazy. I see him laughing there. He's been wanting this. But Lindsay, are you seeing in your analysis, and Rob, I'm going to get to you in just a sec, are you seeing the needle move with regards to independent voters, especially independent women voters, in terms of Kavanaugh, with regards to Kavanaugh? Could this be a deciding factor that sees Republicans losing the Senate if they play this Kavanaugh thing the wrong way?
I think for a lot of independent voters and a lot of women who were Obama-Trump voters, especially with the economic angle, I think with regard to the Supreme Court, there are a lot of fiscal conservatives in the independent movement, and there are a lot of progressives that feel shut out. So I think a lot of independent voters are looking at the thoughtfulness of the idea of the Supreme Court, just like Ben Sasse pointed out, and say, this isn't an activist judge. He's not going to overturn Roe versus Wade because it's established law. So when the media comes screaming, a lot of independent voters roll their eyes, and the media is making money on tension and a story.
Right.
So I think a lot of it, there's many types of independent voters, but I will tell you this, when the parties start to roll out the circus, we're in a midterm, independent voters start to turn away from that and say, this is why I'm independent, this is why I'm not voting for party lines. And it's an alienating factor, which gives independents even more power.
Yeah,
that's how this power play is working out right now.
I know they're who everybody's worried about in Florida, the independent voter. All right, Rob, you have been chomping at the bit for this fight on Twitter for the last week. Democratic strategist. Let me ask you this, Rob. Contrast this for me and tell me the difference. Tell me why Dianne Feinstein and the Democrats are not hysterical, calling for the immediate resignation of Keith Ellison. With Ellison, we have recent allegations, 2 credible complaining victims, multiple witnesses. Allegedly, we have audio tapes and photographs, and we've had a released, detailed transcript of a 911 call. With regards to Kavanaugh, the allegations against him are 35 years old, inconsistent recollections by the victim, no witnesses by the alleged victim, no witnesses,
no
fuzzy
evidence,
details,
no
and
corroborating
no
evidence.
Supporting evidence. So how can your party, Rob, how can they genuinely, sincerely attack Kavanaugh while ignoring Keith Ellison?
John, I'm flattered that you always look at me as the spokesperson for the Democratic Party.
See, Rob, you see the esteem I hold you in? Do you get this?
I'd be ill-placed. I remember a time, John, I think 6 months ago, you hurt my feelings, and I'm thinking about that 35 years from now, if by some miracle I'm alive. I think that this is bringing out the worst in both parties, as Joe Walsh agreed with me today on Twitter. And I'm going to agree with Lindsay there. I mean, but yes, you're going to find a double standard on both sides and from both parties today politically. And there's so much of really bad high school-like behavior with this dating back now to high school. I just mentioned in the newsroom before I came in here, is like, this is kind of unprecedented. When do we decide where the statute of limitations ends? And this could end up, even if it's delayed, benefiting the Republicans. Kellyanne Conway was quick to say, let's let both parties speak, because I'm not going to make any predictions here. I don't know enough of the facts, but
Rob, not to interrupt you,
for
Rob,
the Democrats.
Kavanaugh said sorry to interrupt, but Kavanaugh said he would testify as well. So what would satisfy you as a Democrat? Not speaking for the Democratic Party on the whole as a monolith, but Rob Taub, prominent Democrat, visible Democrat in the media. You're out there, you understand the issues. What would satisfy you? What would you want to hear from both the accuser, Christine Blasey Ford, and Judge Kavanaugh? Because I agree, let's let everybody testify. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Right. What would make you say, okay, I oppose Kavanaugh for many political reasons, but this is not criteria upon which to remove him or kill his nomination? What would you want to hear?
That again is a tough one because I don't know what the accuser is going to say. I will tell you what bothers me, and this is what I've heard, so I'm not even, I haven't read the quote directly, that she's saying that she thought he was going to kill her, and now then people are saying, well, she said this under with a lie detector. I mean, that doesn't mean that he really was, and I'm wondering then how far all of this is going to go. It just saddens me to see that this is the state of our political system.
What she said, just to clarify.
Yeah, because earlier last week I thought Kavanaugh should have been confirmed.
Yeah, Rob, just to clarify for the audience, what she was saying was that her more recent allegation is that he pushed her onto a bed, tried to take off her clothes in a one-piece bathing suit, and when she screamed, he put his hand over her mouth. Allegedly, whomever the guy was, if it even happened, put his hand over her mouth, and she felt she might inadvertently be killed as a result of that. I guess she meant suffocated or something to that effect. I don't think she was implying that it was an intentional attempt to murder her, but just to set the context of that for the viewers. Lindsay, let me real quick though, Gina. I'm sorry. Lindsay,
I'm
give me your
trying to indict Kavanaugh here.
Well, right, but Lindsay, as a woman, give me your impression of all this.
Look, the way I look at it, and the way I think a lot of independent and swing voters are looking at it is minus the party politics. There's two things. There's two ways to go on this. It's a tree. It's like a family tree. Either what he did is illegal, or he acted like a jerk, or it didn't happen.
Right.
So if he acted like a jerk, does it make him unfit, or was he just a jerk? A lot of us have been jerks before. If he was a jerk,
and he was
fine.
17.
But he's been a powerful, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of 17-year-old jerks like that out there. But if it made him unfit to be a judge, why not earlier? Right. And why not before the confirmation? If it was illegal, well, then prove it. And I think it's really good for the Republicans to say, okay, well, let's talk about it. Because if he's confirmed and then this is kind of this hazy thing, it undermines their vote. And so if it was illegal, take the appropriate steps. And if not, let's move on.
All right,
it's either press it forward or not, but she must come forward and present the facts. Otherwise, it reeks of strategy.
Yes.
Right.
And I know the people I write for and I podcast for, most of them feel the exact same way because this shuts out the legitimacy of going forward as a judge if he just acted like a jerk or he committed a crime, period.
So, Rob, I'm going to give you the first shot at this one. I want to ask you, do you really think the average guy, like, let's just take a typical union, guys voted Democrat most of his life. He might fit up into Lindsay's category a little more now that he kind of likes some of the stuff that Trump's doing, bringing back the jobs, wants to build the wall to keep the jobs here in America, that kind of thing, keep the jobs belonging to American workers. That guy who really is the true independent, but used to be Democrat. Do you think that he cares or even knows about these tariffs?
Well, that guy may be me, Rob Taub, who may think that what Trump says is merely mundane rhetoric about the wall and about what he's doing with trade. And a lot of it is with Trump's incompetent execution. Maybe we do need to rework our trade deals, but not, as I always describe Donald Trump, as subtle as an anvil landing on a grand piano.
Okay, but Rob, let me ask you though. How would you like? Let me ask you though, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I really want to know from your perspective because nothing Obama did with tariffs was effective. Nothing, in fact, several presidents we can go back and they've been largely ineffective. The U.S. has a major trade deficit. Rob, what would you have suggested that President Trump did that would have gotten their attention the way this appears to have and at least gotten them all to the table?
Sit down at a table, and have some cheeseburgers. I'd prefer them medium rare, so I'll negotiate
I'm
with
with you on
Donald
that.
Trump. He wants it well done. We'll get it medium, and have a real negotiation. Being a bully is not being a great negotiator.
Rob, how's he
and
being a
that's what
bully?
I see Trump always do.
How's he being a bully? They've been imposing these tariffs on us. Gina and I were speaking about it a bit earlier.
You don't conduct foreign policy and trade policy by tweeting, which is what, unless I'm wrong, he seems to be doing.
Yeah, but they told him you didn't win the
election.
election.
Way to govern.
They told him you didn't win the election by doing things in an asymmetrical warfare type way, and it won him the election. We'll get back to that in a second, because I want to get Lindsay's answer on Gina's question. It's something we were speaking about earlier. Lindsay, same question. Yesterday, Sunday, day before Saturday, there are union guys out there. I was in New York. A lot of job sites, a lot of guys making a lot of overtime and very good money. Construction is booming in the city. You couldn't get down a street without there being traffic. You're there, Rob. You know what I'm talking about. These guys were out at barbecues. They were out on their boat fishing yesterday, taking their kids to ball games. They're in their car with their buddy on the Long Island Expressway trying to get out to that baseball field. Are these guys, Lindsay, talking about tariffs and China trade policy, or are they happy they got that big overtime check on Friday?
You know, a lot of these guys across the country they feel something needs to be done, and they feel the last guys in office, like Gina very well pointed out, we're not willing to retrench and make this about America. One of the things we've got to acknowledge, though, is that people aren't patient. We could take a big hit from this, but if it puts us in a better place, there are a lot of voters out there that support that. You know, in my hometown, we've got a big aluminum plant that's practically shut down. I mean, China, and there are Democrats who acknowledge this. China's been undercutting us, as Gina also pointed out, and I'm sure you agree with that for too long. So I think that we need to understand that there are people out there who have patience. There are blue-collar workers that flipped from Democrat to Republican to vote for Trump. One of the things, though, I do agree with, along with what Rob said, is that the tweeting. Look, you can use Twitter, but when the manner in which you tweet gets in front of your message, it does no one any good. And I think that that's a problem coming from very, very thoughtful voters. That's a problem with them because it gets in front of the negotiations. I don't have a problem with how he's negotiated, though, because we've got to play hardball. If we'd been playing hardball up till now, that wouldn't the aggression on these negotiations wouldn't be where it is. But we know Obama did nothing for us. He tried to globalize and sell off the entire country. So it might be tough for us, but it's going to happen. And I think there's a lot of American workers that are just exhausted. They're willing to grab onto this. And Trump voters knew this was coming, and he still won.
Rob, I have to go to you because this is just way too much fun for me. Your girl, future of the Democrats there, what struck me about what she said, a lot of things struck me, like the missing, 40 trillion. But one thing she struck me, she worked at a restaurant. This is what most people think of as extra income. It's the income that you don't need to pay your bills when you're going out to dinner, right? There were years where my husband and I were paying off student loans and going to grad school and doing all those things. Disposable income. And we didn't go to dinner. So she was working at a restaurant and she asked people, do you have health insurance? And I happen to know health insurance, especially if you're like a single person living in the city, is not that expensive, especially if you look at things like medical savings accounts, which used to be available before President Obama sort of mixed all that up. But Rob, is there any sense of personal responsibility left among the leaders of the Democrat Party, like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez?
I think that she's a socialist and nothing like a Democrat and an outlier. And in fact, I'm not a doctor, but I've played one on television, and I'm going to diagnose her as having an inverted cerebellum because what she wants to do is even crazier than Donald Trump's Space Force. There's no money to pay for it, and it's just unreasonable and pie in the sky and ludicrous. And I think it's unfortunate that because she's telegenic, she's ending up as a poster person for the Democratic Party, because I don't think she's representative of what most of us think and believe.
Yeah, but Rob, your chairman, Tom Perez, called her the future of the Democratic Party. He is the chairman of the DMC. He is the guy. We always joke that you don't speak for all Democrats.
When did Tom say this?
He's the guy who does speak for all Democrats. A couple of months back, wasn't it?
Not even that long.
Perez, we'll check the record for you, Rob, but Perez said she's the future of the Democratic Party, that these Democratic socialist people like her are. So, where does your party go when the chairman is embracing the Ocasio-Cortezes of the world?
I've been complaining about this for the past few weeks in my columns, and I have a new one coming out this week because I was a little incensed by actor Jim Carrey saying
Yes.
that socialism is the cure. And then I read about him on the internet and noticed that he owns a $40 million G5 jet. So I wonder if that's going to be available for all of us to use. I think that he's also living in a dream world, and it's easy to be a socialist, I think, if you're incredibly poor and destitute, or if you're insanely rich and live in a bubble.
Hey, he needs that jet to fight climate change. All right, Rob Taub, Lindsay France, always great to see you two. Thanks very much.